Welcome to our LB's The Lover of Books author chat. If this is your first time here or watching the recording, glad you found us and welcome. I've had the honor to interview 60 debut to best-selling authors, and readers like
Wow.
you have helped my YouTube channel, LB The Lover of Books, to amass, drum roll, over 14,500 hours watched. So I really appreciate everybody taking that time to go back and like and comment. It really helps this content find new readers. But we are here for our, again, drum roll, last 2024 author chat. Um, we started off with our December, we called it Summer and December series with Christy Woodson Harvey. And now, though, I feel like even though this is a summer and December read, I feel like it is the perfect book to end our year on. So I'm so excited that Catherine agreed to join us. But I want to go ahead and introduce her. She is a New York Times bestselling author of the memoirs Catastrophic Happiness and Waiting for Birdie, the middle grade novel One Mixed Up Night, the kids' craft book Stitch Camp, the best-selling how-to books for kids, How to Be a Person and What Can I Say, and the novels We All Want Impossible Things, and of course this one, Sandwich. Well, that's not all. She's also written publications. She has a Substack newsletter, but she's been a contributor for New York Times, Real Simple, Oh, the Oprah Magazine, Cup of Joy, and many others. She lives in Amherst, Massachusetts, where she uses her PhD as the academic department coordinator of creative writing at Amherst College. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Catherine.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you guys for coming on a Sunday night. It already feels less dreary seeing everybody's face.
It is. This book was a breath of fresh air, I will say. It really touched so many points in my life. So I want to just go ahead and say thank you right off the
Thank you
bat.
so much for that.
It was fantastic. But let's go ahead and just start straight in because I have so much to talk about. I'm not even going to
Okay.
pause. Okay. So one of the major themes is that you go about tackling is that it seems so truthful for moms, like this reality that nobody talks about. Why did you want, I mean, I know you've had children's books and you've had a novel, but why did you want to tackle this motherhood in such a real way?
So really, before I was even writing books, I was writing this motherhood column, starting in 2002, actually. I wrote a weekly column about motherhood sort of throughout my kids' young childhood. And I think, at that time, I'm like trying to get a read on how old everybody is. I mean, I think of operating instructions, Anne Lamott's book about motherhood as like the first book of that genre of a person being like, this is the best of times and the worst of times. And it was so radical then, it's like funny now. Like now it's radical to say like you enjoy spending time with your kids. But at that time it was so radical to say it was hard to have a baby. And so I was coming in on that tradition, and I still I think the thing that's hardest to capture about motherhood for me, and maybe just full stop, is the way that it's all of the things. And I think that it's like we're so well trained to decide if something's like good or bad or easy or hard, and I feel like motherhood just forces you to hold all of it, that it's like every single feeling you could feel, you're going to feel as a mother. And I really wanted to write a book that was about that, the kind of everything, everywhere, all at once-ness of being a mother.
So I'm assuming it always was going to be her perspective in her head where we get not only her dialogue, but her thoughts, right? Because she's
Yeah.
filtering constantly. And then other times her filter isn't quite down and stuff slips out.
Yeah.
But I assume that was a given.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I have really only ever written as myself in a lot of ways. Even when I write fiction, it's very, it really is like, um, it tends to be very first person, kind of very in the head of that narrator.
Well, the narrator is definitely talking to someone. She calls it out a couple of times. Like she will say it's not just her thoughts, but she's speaking to someone in particular, or some group of people. I'm not quite sure. What were you envisioning there?
Mm, that's such a great observation, by the way. I mean, I think I was picturing, us. Like, I think I was picturing mothers, truly. And I feel self-conscious to say that because among the people who I knew would read it are like my son and my husband and my daughter who's 20. And um, so it wasn't just, I knew it wouldn't just be mothers, but I think that's who I was writing for.
So when you say that you bleed into even your fiction, how much crossover is there? And do your kids or husband see that and recognize it in the book? Like, wait a minute, mom, I know that story, or that's
Oh,
definitely
it's
how you
all
would.
lifted. Oh, yeah, it's not that subtle. It's not even like that. It's like most of the stories are lifted fully out of our lives. Like the characters are my kids. Like we are, it's not it's not like a vague or oblique reference to like things that have happened to us. I mean, I think for the kids and for Michael, my husband, like whatever all else about Rocky, and there's a lot to say about Rocky and how awful she is, as people like to tell me. And but that book is a love letter to them, and they know that, that she's having a lot of struggles, but the primary way she feels about her kids, her parents, her husband is that she adores them. And my kids really felt that when they read the book, like that it was a book about how much I love them, which is
Did
a very sweet way for them to feel.
Absolutely. Did they get a chance to read it before it
Yes.
came out then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All the sort of primary actors got to sign off on it in a way. I worry I don't want to put anything out into the world that someone's gonna feel like queasy about. So my daughter read it first, and my husband, who's like an amazingly generous reader, um, and our son read it, and he's not really a reader at all. I like to say that like it's just a normal thing. Like some people, they just don't read. That's fine. Ha ha ha. It's very stressful to me. Anyway, but he read it, even he read it. And his thing that really made me laugh was that it was like exactly him and his sister, except they were having much more sex in the book than they are in real life, sadly. And that was a hilarious observation, I thought. Anyways, yeah. So everybody gets to read it. And I wrote a novel before this called We All Want Impossible Things. And that was very, very not loosely based on my best friend dying in hospice. That book was um parts of it were practically memoir. And that book I was more nervous about because I wanted her family to read it and sign off on it, before it went to press. And so that was even more sort of nerve-wracking to me. But anyways, yeah, it's, you don't want to, like my dad is slightly offended because even though his character is such a good character, the Mort character in Sandwich, that is my dad. And he read a review where somebody was like, Mort the comedic genius. And he was like, oh, thank you. I did say all those things. But he's also like a little offended because sometimes there's like friction between those characters. Anyway, it's hard, it's like hard to fiction is good because you can tell the truth and you have the screen of fiction, you know? It's like you can tell all the truth about, I don't mean the truth in the details, but the truth about how you feel or relationships. And you have this little bit of a screen of the fact that it's fiction.
Well, I love that you told us that some people just don't like Roxy, which I'm like, how can you not like Roxy? But in my mind, I'm wondering if it's because so many people, when they look back, it's through rose colored glasses. And so if the rose colored glass is removed and you start really remembering the truth of the matter, that we did all experience those feelings all at
Mm.
once, that
Yeah.
maybe that's where the fracture lies. Because
Yeah, I think there are a lot of reasons people don't like Rocky.
I say
And
Rocky, yeah, sorry.
oh, please, I don't care. Um, and that maybe is one of them. I mean, I think it's true that I think there's something very even though she apologizes for it. So it's not unapologetic, but there's a certain kind of self-centeredness to Rocky. Like she's very about her like perspective, even as she's taking care of everybody, which she genuinely is doing. But like she's very kind of in her own process and she knows she's a narcissist. She says it like three different times in the book, but that really grates on people. And sometimes I think it's fair that that grates on people. I don't have like a problem with that. But I also think it's hard to allow women like to take up that much space with their thoughts and feelings. Like we're not really accustomed to that culturally, I think. So sometimes the part of me that's like a little defensive is like psychoanalyzing people for having a hard time with it.
Well, I just got to listen to Jesmyn Ward speak here locally at Wake Forest, and she mentioned, because I want to go back a little bit about this
Please.
weighing process of, a lot of her work is actually nonfiction, but a
Yeah.
lot the same process kind of happened with you with, is it worth telling this story? Is it going to hurt someone? Is it going to be, worth it to let this go or not, or hold it back? And so it just is interesting because it seems to seep even into your fiction because there's so much of real life flowing through, which I find fascinating. Because now I'm like, okay, what are the real stories? Well, we know it's not the sex. Okay, we already got that out of the way. But, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I think that like I don't have an imagination for like world building, like science fiction or speculative fiction or like I am very whatever it's called that's not that that's like real life, that anything could is real. And I think the things that are most implausible in my fiction are the things that are literally lifted right out of my life, like that people don't, that are like, well, that's, no one would say that. Like my dad making like a crack at a funeral about somebody not looking great, whatever. Those things are just true to life. Like those are lifted right out of life. I don't, yeah, I'm not really sure. I do stand by feeling, having written both memoir and fiction, I really do feel like fiction is for me like a better vehicle for telling the truth. I think memoir, you have to be so careful
Mhm.
because you're in danger of revealing things about real people and you have to be very married to like the actual truth. You have to be able to reconstruct conversations or you can't really put them in. And I feel like fiction, if you have a true thing you want to say, you can put it in a novel. I find it easier to do that.
Well, a lot of people use humor that way as well, right? To
Sure.
get out the truth. But I have to know, the hermit crab musical shells, did that really happen?
That
Because
really happened.
I kind of really wanted to see that.
It was crazy. Yeah. So if you haven't read the book, it's just this scene in the
Oh,
book where,
everybody
oh,
knows, like we're
okay.
spoiler full here. So go.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's just, when my kids were little, they dug this pool for all these hermit crabs. And then they put an empty shell in, and it turned into like Filene's basement, basically. All of the hermit crabs got out of their shells and tried on everybody else's shells, and we had never seen such a thing. It was absolutely mind-boggling. And they all like patted themselves around. They would back into the shell and then like pat themselves all around with their little claws. We I felt like we were watching a cartoon. It was completely unreal. And at the end of the whole thing, they all ended up in a shell, so we put in a good shell.
Mhm.
And by the end of the whole thing, there was another empty shell, and it was like a real piece of crap shell. And so we felt like, we played God. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, that's like,
Everybody came out on top.
I just loved that story and I was hoping it was real, but
Yeah.
I may have to Google to see if anybody's filmed this now because I kind of want to see it.
I would think so. I know. I didn't have a phone back then, or I would have more like things to look at.
So you must be a real observer, or is your memory just fantastic? Like, or is it just like the quirky, funny stuff that comes through? Like, how does your brain work, and how does it get to the paper?
That's a great question. So I'm 56 years old. Guess how good my memory is. Just guess.
Yeah.
If you had to guess. I mean,
Well,
come on. I
yeah.
have to write everything down. Did you ever see that movie? I can't remember what it's called. It's maybe called like Memento, where he has to tattoo everything on himself so he doesn't forget because he has amnesia. I'm that person. I just like write shit on my arms with a Sharpie. Like I can't remember a thing, but I write everything down. So I write down everything, like all of the and eavesdropping as a writer when you're like, I need to because it's my art. I mean, come on. Like it's such a great excuse to eavesdrop. It's so fun. And that's what happens to me on the beach. Like that's part of why I wrote a beach book is that every time we go to the beach, I bring a book that I plan to read. And then I never read at all. I just sit and listen to everything. And so really, I wrote Sandwich so that I had somewhere to put that scene of the frat boys talking about koi in the koi pond. The whole book was just like a vehicle for that one line which I literally overheard on the beach. And I was like, I gotta write a book so I can put that line somewhere. So
Oh, Miss, they're
yeah,
so stoned they wouldn't even know it was them.
I
Like,
know. I know they wouldn't even. I'm sorry, my cat is yelling and
oh
shouting.
wait, let's see the chicken
This is
inspired
not
cat.
chicken. This is Okay, I'm writing a new book, and if you read it and you meet the cat Angie, this is Angie. Her real name is Jellyfish, though. But in the book, she's Angie.
Okay.
Um, anyway, yeah, so I write it. I write everything down, and I am blessed with like hilarious people in my life. My dad is incredibly funny. My daughter Birdie is like the funniest person. All of Willa's lines are just things Birdie actually said, and so I write everything down. And then the danger in that, as I'm sure you can guess or know if you're a writer, is then like my dad will say something kind of funny, and then he'll be like, I don't see you writing that down. Like he's like kind of offended, you know? It's like, yeah, well, yeah, I don't seem to be writing that down, Dad. Like,
So do
okay.
better,
I
Dad.
know. I mean, if you want me to write it down. No, I just take a ton of notes. I really don't remember anything. And then I wake up in the morning. And this now is a bigger problem than I'm going to make it out to be. But I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have written something on a post-it note and it'll just say like leather Tuscadero. I don't know if you watched Happy Days, but that was the like butch girl in Happy Days, probably the first girl I had a major crush on. I'll wake up and that'll just be on a post-it note as if it's completely self-explanatory as a note to myself. Like, what do you do with that? I just have no idea. I
Well,
right.
Rocky would put it up next to a poem because she did the exact same thing.
It's true. That's right. I know. Leather Tuscadero. I want to put it in a book just like with no explanation, just that, because that's all I can remember.
Would be funny if they were like crazy chapter titles that sort of worked in.
Yeah.
Like
Or
all
just
your
like
post-it moments can be your chapter titles somehow.
exactly, just weird amnesiac like notes from a post-it.
Exactly. Oh, that's awesome. Well, jellyfish is adorable. Um, all right, let's keep moving on. One of the themes that you talked about is the feeling of being so unknown by your partner or your children or whoever it is. But it seems like there was this constant, you should know me, but the communication's off. Like, how realistic? And is that just something you played on? Because obviously, I think a lot of people, if you don't marry yourself, right, you have to marry someone that's a little bit different. And so I felt like that was a common theme between, the husband and wife the entire time.
Right, and she's very angry about not being known while she's keeping this, like, massive secret from her husband, which was something I really wanted to like, it's real that she feels that way, and, like, she does, in the course of the book, have to come to terms with how much that's a situation that she's created where, like, he couldn't possibly know her.
Mhm.
Um, but I did also wanna write about that really particular kind of way as a mother, um, you can feel like all of the emotional work of a family falls to you, and it's like no matter how much you and your partner might split like household chores, like you do the laundry and I'll make dinner, and then there's just this whole realm of like being like a vibes monitor and attending to everybody's feelings. And Rocky's like pissed about it, even as she wouldn't trade it for anything, right? She doesn't want to not be that, but also the long, almost like the toll it's taken on her over this number of decades as she has really just been the person tracking everybody's like psyche.
Yeah, I
And
mean, she
then Nick
talks.
accuses her of that being, like, some problems of her own making, which also I think is true.
I mean,
I
yeah, I mean,
say,
she.
like, I don't know these people. It might be
Is it kind of weird that you have to talk about a character that's
I
based on
mean,
yourself?
it kinda is to be honest, it's a little weird. Like, I really try to talk about the book as fiction, but so much of it obviously is very real. Like, that is very real to me. I think there's this like fundamental human desire to be seen and known and understood. And I think Rocky is just grappling with that. Like I don't think she's different from other people. I think
Oh
that's
God,
just
no. I mean,
right. I just
definitely.
think that's like a very fundamental thing.
Well, she even says, that it's her job to take care of the emotional side of the family. Like that's
Right.
her chore. But yet she also has to deal with her own anxiety that is gets exacerbated, I think, as she gets older. And I think hormones change and whatnot, although she
Yeah.
does start medication. But we all know, or at least we know now, because people are starting to talk about it, menopause can really do a number on those hormones.
Can
What?
it? Oh, can it? Do you
Yeah.
no, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
What? Well,
What?
we don't even say that M word. Like, how
Yeah, yeah.
often do we even where it is
Yeah.
even mentioned? Where this is the book is completely about it. Which, thank you. Why did you want to tackle that? I mean, just because it's right there present.
That's why. Yes, that is why. I started keeping a list of things that were happening to me because of menopause. It was like this. I mean, I still have it. It was just like a piece of paper. And I would just like add to it over the months of this experience of all of just the things. Like, I feel like here's what I'll say. So, you're like in fifth grade or whatever, and you're in health class, or it was called sex ed still when they taught it to us. Or
Same.
you read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And you get this idea that fertility, like basically, you're going to get your period and you like step onto the train, and the train is your life of fertility. And you ride this train for some number of decades, have babies or don't, whatever. And then when you're 50, you just step off and the train goes on without you. And I swear this was somehow in my head where it was like what menopause was going to be was you stop getting your period. I literally, for some reason, until it was happening to me, that's actually what I thought it would be.
That's
Like,
what we were taught. I
I
mean,
know
I
that,
mean,
that
it's
it's
not
like
like that's it.
that
The
it's the absence of a thing, right?
yeah,
That's all menopause is. The content of menopause is you stop having your period. And I was like, that sounds okay. And I cannot tell you, and I'm like a feminist and a researcher and a journalist, and I read a billion books, and I read Our Bodies Ourselves 100,000 times. I was shocked at every turn by menopause. I was like, what? Like the things that were happening to my body and my psyche, and it was so outrageous. And the just free floating like rage was
yeah.
shocking to me.
Well, I will say that one of my good girlfriends from college, like, had her whole midlife crisis and decided once she discovered that it was perimenopausal to become a specialist. And she said, there's nobody out there hardly doing it. Like, they don't teach it in med school.
Yeah.
And, so it's really an unknown topic. And even when you go to talk to your GP about it, they probably haven't studied it, like it's just, we didn't talk to our mothers about it because they weren't discussing it.
I
It's like
know.
this abyss.
It's a we I know. It's like this. And I feel like that's changing. Like
Mhm.
really quickly. I feel like, the New York Times writes about menopause like every other minute now, which is awesome. So I feel like there's a sort of cultural shift around menopause right now, but I will say I wrote every place I've written about vaginal estrogen, sorry to get really granular and nitty-gritty, but like vaginal estrogen basically has saved my veg. And ev- I would say 3 times a week, someone will email me to tell me that they use it because of something I wrote, and then it's like changed their lives. And I'm like, this is what I was put on earth to do, is get people to use vaginal estrogen. Like it turns out I have a special purpose, and it's that.
That's post-it worthy right there.
Yeah, that one.
I like Jessica said, you could have a book title, Notes from a Post-it,
Oh
and
my
just
God. Yes, so good.
no, it's just I'm so glad, like you said, it is being talked about now, but it just, I think also regionally, depending on where you live, also it may be saturated in more, in certain areas more than others as well. So it's I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm glad you're talking about it. And yes, you are on earth here to inform us and tell us about your family. So keep on keeping on. Um, okay, they go to this cottage in Cape Cod. Is this
Yeah.
also a real place? Because you said
Yeah.
you don't imagine. So, like, is this like described as it is, or
Yeah, yeah. So we rented this tiny condo on the Cape for around like 18 years or 19 years, the same one. We went every year for 1 week, every summer. And we rented it until 2021. And then they stopped renting it, we were like, wait, now what? Um, so and that was something I did want to write about was I don't know if any of you have had this experience of going like to the same place year after year. And because the backdrop doesn't change, it like highlights the way your kids are changing or the way your lives are changing. Like there's this constant backdrop, like in all the photos, it's like, here's the house, nothing changes, and the kids are getting bigger. And there was something about that particular experience that I really wanted to write about. And I actually thought about writing it as, like one day in all of, it would be like July 11th over the course of 20 years. But A, someone had already written that book and it was called One Day. And B, I didn't actually have the like skill to do it. And it wasn't quite the book I wanted to write. What I wanted was to write not it as it happened, but in nostalgic flashbacks.
Well, and I think that's how our flashbacks work, right? Something triggers us to
Yeah.
go back to think about
Yeah.
something, and then we come back to the present and it applies. And that's exactly what happened to Roxy the entire time.
Yeah.
And I
It's
also
true.
found fantastic narrator, because that is a very easy recipe for readers to get lost, but I was not at all. And so kudos to that narrator because she was phenomenal.
I'll tell her.
Yeah. What did you, was it you?
What?
No. Oh, you were like saying that, like, I'll tell her. I'm like, but it doesn't sound like you. This thing is McNamara, maybe, or something like that. Anyways, really, really good.
Thank
Um, Also, you talked about, I mean, the house really is kind of a time capsule, but the other time capsule I really loved was the beach bag, because I think we've all experienced that in some form or fashion, whether or not it's a beach bag or something else. And I love that go back and remember what the kids were like. And what, I mean, yeah, they're in their 20s, they really don't need the pail and the shovel and the I don't know, I just
Right.
loved it. I just loved it.
We were on a family trip in the summer and I got back from this trip and I dumped out my purse, but it's like a horrible tote bag, whatever. It's the bag I carry around everywhere. I dumped it out. Okay, my kids are 25 and 21. My bag was just full of all the shit they'd put in it for the whole week. Like I thought it was the funniest thing that they still do it. It had like plastic cutlery in it and like chewing gum wadded up, and it was so funny to me that I still basically they treat my bag like they can put all their precious things and also just their actual garbage in it. Like I don't even know what's happening until I dump it out.
Well, I think maybe you do. You said at the end of the book, parenting's never done. Like it's always a continual process, whether it be a tote
Yeah,
bag or the sweet mom that, that you said had to wait for you to leave the room. I mean, to me, it was such a love letter for moms to their children. You know,
thanks.
how hard was that to write?
The scene where the mom dies, is that what you mean?
Mhm.
Or just the book in general?
The book, both, really. I mean, I think all of
Um,
it can be very hard.
yeah, I mean, it's funny, it's almost like just the way you would think. Like the lighthearted parts are so easy to write. The stuff that's just Willa being a maniac, like that stuff's so easy. The banter on the beach, all of that's incredibly easy. That stuff just writes itself. And then the stuff that's hard is hard to write. It's funny, and even stuff that's fictional, because it carries so much real feeling, is like painful.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but so I don't really know. And like people have asked me if it's cathartic to write about hard things, and I think so, but I'm not totally sure. Like when I wrote about my friend dying, um, I mean, it was great because I got to like sit around with every letter she'd ever written me. And, again, for work, I wallowed around. I have 100 billion photographs of her. I mean, we were friends for 45 years. But then I think there was, I just don't know if it was exactly cathartic to write a book about, when the proofs came from the publisher, I like half expected her to like leap out of the box, and she like, you don't actually solve the problem of grief by writing about it.
I think it goes back to what you said at the beginning. As a mother, it's never all good or all bad. It's
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's
throughout.
true. It's
And so,
really true. And maybe what you do is like hold, grief and gratitude together. Like, I think it's really what we're here to do, is hold those things together.
well, and Willa did, I think it may have been Willa or Rocky, when they talked about the gratitude about the opportunity to complain.
Oh my God, I know. That's
Oh,
that's Willa. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. How grateful you might be to complain.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah. How grateful we are to complain.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
that's its own kind of a special kind of gratitude.
yeah.
It's a non-traditional kind of gratitude.
Absolutely. People were saying in the chat box, I'll have to go back, but like I think it was Lainey, like some passages are so laugh out loud funny and others are so poignant that we're brought to tears. I mean, it's just, which do you enjoy? I assume the humor, you talked about that being a little bit easier. And when you're writing, do you laugh and cry at your keyboard while it's processing?
I only do if I'm sure no one in my family is going to see me and make fun of me, because there's nothing easier to make fun of than someone who's making themselves both laugh and cry, because how ridiculous is that? But yeah, like I do have a lot of, I don't know if it's like method acting, but I feel a lot when I'm writing. I definitely feel a lot of feelings. And the funny stuff is so easy to write and is very, like how we live. That's Michael and I once, this is just directly from life and is oversharing, sorry, whatever. But Michael and I once saw a couples therapist who was like, she basically accused us of using humor to do all the work of our relationship. And we were like, duh. She was so frustrated with us. We refused to acknowledge that that might be a problem. We were like, yeah, that's the best thing about our relationship. Like, don't take that from us.
I feel like you need to go on shrinking, like start writing some episodes. Have you seen Shrinking yet?
Yeah, I saw Shrinking.
The series is hilarious, and I
Yeah.
could just see that being on the couch at some point. Like, great
Yeah.
material. I love it. Since we were talking about grief, I do want to talk about one of your statements because I felt like it was an important one. When you said grief is love imploding or love expanding, I would love to know what you meant by that because I feel like there was so much in that statement, but I'm not quite sure what you wanted to tell us.
Mhm. Well, the grief, it's funny to have to explain your own thing. It's like, what the hell does that mean? I have no idea.
You're
I,
like, I don't
I
remember
think what I
writing that.
meant was
That's menopause.
that grief feels like almost like love sucked into a black hole, but it also feels like you feel all the love, like the way the universe was created. It's like those two almost like cosmic extremes of like something expanding almost infinitely. The way in grief you can feel the immensity of your love for somebody in loss, but also you can feel like all that love just has nowhere to go and is like sucking in on itself.
Yeah. I thought it was a beautiful quote. I appreciate you talking about it.
I appreciate you asking about it, truly.
I'm going to ask some rapid fire questions. And while I'm doing that, everybody be thinking of what you would like to ask Catherine. And I know there's been some in the chat box that I haven't gotten to, but I would love for y'all to ask it. All right. Are you ready? Clams or sea scallops?
Oh my God, stop. Those are like my two literal favorite foods, and I will not pick.
Okay. Next one. Do you keep a diary? You said you write things down, but like from before, did that help?
I used to keep, has anyone kept like a 10-year or a 5-year journal where you write like one or two lines every day and each page is that day from like 10 years? Has
Oh,
anyone done
that's
that?
cool.
I kept a 10-year journal and I kept it for 10 years. And and it's really quite precious to me. Sorry, that's not rapid fire.
Okay. Favorite children's book?
Oh my God. This is brutal. Amos and Boris by William Steig.
What is the scent that you consider smells like home?
Oh my God. Maybe vanilla.
Emily Dickinson or Mary Oliver?
Mary Oliver.
Best movie quote?
In lieu of answering that, I'll just tell you that I went to my when I was a senior in high school, I went to my Yale alumni interview with a concussion I had just gotten, only I didn't know I had a concussion, as is sometimes the way of concussions. And I went directly from getting a concussion. I took the subway. I grew up in New York. I took the subway to the Upper West Side from the Bronx where I went to school. And I showed up with a concussion that was then diagnosed the next day when it turned out I'd broken my cheekbone, whatever. It was a whole thing. But I didn't know I had it yet. I showed up. The Yale interviewer, I did not get into Yale nor go to Yale. Spoiler alert. The Yale interviewer said to me, "What's your favorite movie?" And I said, "Caddyshack." And then I stood up, opened her front door, and vomited onto her stoop.
She's still telling that story, just so you know.
Like, what? And I came home from that interview, and by the time I got home, I had like vomit on my shirt, and I had two black eyes, and my parents were like, "Oh
That's what Yale does to you. You're not going there.
Anyway, Caddyshack. No, I don't know. I don't have a favorite movie one.
That's awesome. We'd have to leave that for your husband, maybe. Best type of mushroom?
I feel like that's a trick question, but like,
Listen,
well, I forage wild mushrooms. I'm gonna say oyster mushrooms are the most reliable for foraging.
if you had to pick foam roller or running?
Oh my God, you are so funny. These are such excellent questions. Thank you for paying attention. I feel very seen. I'm not kidding. I hate foam rolling and running like
No.
equally, and I do both of them all the time. I hate running a little more than foam rolling.
Okay. Best used book you've ever found?
Oh my God, that's so good. Um, uh, okay, this didn't happen to me, but our really close friends and neighbors bought a box of books for 25 cents at an auction, and there was a signed copy of Little Women. How good is that?
Oh, that may need to go into a book, I feel like, because that's not
Isn't
real.
that amazing?
All
I
right,
know.
last one. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Wow. I mean, if it's summer, black raspberry.
Okay. Great job. Great job.
Thank you.
All right, team LBs, what questions do y'all have? If you have a question, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Let's see if I went too big. Oh, there we are. Okay. And if you don't, I'll check them in the chat box as well, because I did see some there. Some people aren't going to want to go on camera. All right. Sandwich is the perfect title. Was that always the working title, or did your publisher come up with that?
That's a great question. I did come up with it, and actually I went on book tour this summer and I got asked that question a fair amount of times, and I always said, and I thought it was true, that sandwich had always been the title of the book. I was like, oh, it was always sandwich. Like, and then I found the document I had first sent my agent, and I had named the book The Department of Total Loss, which
Oh,
is actually the insurance department my friend was sent to after her car was totaled. Um, so it turned out that's the title of the book. As I was writing it, it was called The Department of Total Loss. How crazy is that? That'd be such a bad title. Everyone would be like, I'm not going to read that, But Sandwich came in pretty early. I thought it would be a great title because of the Cape resonance and the different sandwich stuff. And then they didn't like it because it was a non-optimizable search term. So if you Google sandwich, you just get like Subway listings for 100 pages of Google. Like it takes so long to get to the book. And they were like, that's never gonna work. But then I wore them down.
good for you.
Thank you.
I want to go back to the sandwich idea because it was something that Roxy loved. Absolutely. Like she may have complained, but that may have been attention, but she loved it. And then at the end, the last day, they didn't let her make sandwiches, but Roxy got over it. And I was thinking, I don't know if I'd have been that nice. I mean, I
When
just was,
they didn't want egg salad.
yes,
I know. You gotta roll. You gotta roll with it. Yeah, thank you for feeling it for her. Yeah.
I did. I really
I
did.
know. She had to bring those
Oh,
eggs home in the cooler.
well, Kelly's asking another rapid fire. What is your favorite sandwich?
Mine?
Uh-huh.
Mine is the one that Rocky makes that's like the tuna with the dill and the pepperoncini, and that's a sandwich that I make all through the summer, and it is so unbelievably good. Pepperoncini, the jarred pickled peppers that are like in the Italian part of your grocery store, they're so unbelievably good in everything. I really recommend it. Get the ones that are already sliced, then you just pull them out with a fork right into the tuna.
Well, I'm definitely going to try it. That sounds delicious. Another comment that came up, Jill said the jotting things down, they can't refer, but that part definitely resonated that, friends that are mothers, everybody really felt seen by this book. Did you get a lot of that on tour as well? Like people just like, thank you, or I appreciate this.
Yeah, I mean, I did, and it was awesome. And the nice thing about tour is no one has to come see you. So the people who hated the book, they just don't come out to see you, which is so nice. So tour is very self-selecting of the people who liked the book. But Goodreads is my kids like to read the 1-star Goodreads reviews and send me like choice elements, and some of them are so brutal and awesome. Like someone called the book, like the ones that are really short are so good, and the best 3-word review I've gotten was grinding and plotless. How good is that? Come on, that's so good. That's like artwork.
I love it. All right, Jill, I'm going to get you to ask your question. Go ahead. Can you unmute?
And am
Oh,
I
there you
muted?
are.
You're here.
Yeah, there you
Okay.
are.
How weird. It wouldn't unmute. I just wanted to add to that. That was my comment. I can't tell you how many people I mean, of course, they always contact me when they're reading a good book. Have you read this? Have you read this? And I said, oh, yeah. They were like, I feel like she wrote this book for me. They're all like,
Oh,
I feel like totally seen. So,
thank
you're
you.
like writing about menopause, you're writing about mothers, they felt it deep inside and loved it. So
Thank you
it's not
so
really a
much.
question. I just wanted to add that because,
Thank you.
it felt so special to them to have a book that resonated so much with them. So thank you for writing it.
Thank you so
I
much.
Yeah.
agree. I totally agree with Jill. I do want to go back to the sandwich because someone put JC wrote, I thought that, oh, I lost it. Okay. I thought the title also referred to the sandwich generation trapped
Yep.
between parents and children. Does that kind of what helped wear them in as well? That double.
Well, it was the three things. So all the sandwiches she makes, sandwich generation, and then there's a town in Cape Cod called Sandwich.
Yeah,
so it
I've
was.
been to, that's New Hampshire. Well, oh, there's one in New Hampshire too, isn't there?
Oh, is there?
Yeah, sandwich.
Oh,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah. No, there's one on the Cape, and I actually read at a really big event in Sandwich. And the ugly truth is that the book does not actually take place in Sandwich. It takes place more like in Wellfleet. But I like, who cares, right? Except in Sandwich, they really cared, you know? And so someone I asked was like, does it take, yes or no, does it take place in Sandwich? And I was like, well, like there's elements of different Cape Cod towns, which is totally true. But they could tell that the answer was no, and they were not happy in Sandwich, Mass.
Way to go. Crowd pleasing there, Catherine.
It didn't go so great. No.
Holly says, I love the weekly articles from 2002 and getting ready for Birdie. It helped me when I was a new mom. Then
Oh,
Sandwich came out at another perfect time. What is your next book about? Can you tell us?
yeah, I can. I just finished it on, what day is it? Sunday. I finished it on Friday. I'm telling you guys that. Um, it's about it's going to be familiar in some ways and not in others. It's about a woman in her 50s who has two kids. Oh, it's Rocky. I forgot. It's actually the same actual character. It's so funny
Wait,
because I've
it
written
really is
versions of
Rocky,
this
and you're
character, but
just
I literally forgot it was the same character because my publisher wasn't sure that was going to be a good idea. But anyway, it's Rocky again, and Willa and Jamie and Nick and her dad Mort. And she's in the middle of being diagnosed with this really kind of strange autoimmune illness is one part of the book, and the other part of the book is almost too hard to explain, but it's a lot of book it's a book about like uncertainty in a lot of ways, and it's what I really wanted to do is write an entire novel about what it's like to get information out of your portal. Are you guys connected to like a medical portal? Don't you feel like one day you're going to open your portal and find out you died? I just feel like the portal's insane. Like it used to be that if they had something to tell you, someone would call the house and they would be like, we're so sorry. And instead it's like it dings in and you open your portal and you're like, oh my God.
yeah,
Like,
you get test results
what?
before your doctor's even looked at.
Yeah, and stuff just comes in totally unfiltered. I really wanted to write a novel that this is like the koi pond of this new book is the portal. It's the driving impulse, even though the portal doesn't show up that much in the book. But I really wanted to write a book about the bizarre experience of contemporary like medicine and the way you might have at various moments of an illness a million doctors who are just giving you information in the portal and you are just fragmented into like a million body parts. That said, it's funny. I hope it's funny. Maybe it's not funny, and then I will die and I'll read about it in the portal.
Well, you can always go back to that title from before.
Leather Tuscadero, a
Okay.
novel.
All right, Mindy, you
No,
have
just,
a question.
I don't really have a question. I'm just adding on to that because I use the portal sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. Because like someone had said, you get test results before they call you and tell you anything. So my worst thing is I try not to. I start Googling and
How could you not?
I imagine things that are not usually not right. In my not right. I go to my doctor, he goes, no, you're fine. That's not. So
And meanwhile, you've Googled like low neutrophils, high blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, no,
right,
I'm with you.
right. And so I'm trying not to do that as much, but when you get it before they do sometimes still call or they wait till I go there and then,
to
Yeah.
bring you back. Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, we got your results. And you're like, yeah, I saw them a month ago. So stop. I know.
On
I
a
already have an
positive
MD
note,
by now because I've looked
I
at
know. I'm just going to go to medical school, get the degree, and then you won't even need to call me. I know.
but for
We
other
feel you,
things,
Mindy.
it's
We
good.
feel you.
If you need a refill for a prescription, in other ways, it does have its good points too.
It does. It does.
And also the sense of humor thing, I'm going to go back to that. I was at a wedding recently for my cousin, and they had couples come on the dance floor, and they went by years, you've been married. So we ended up being the longest married, which was 41. And they said, what's your secret? And I said right away, sense of humor.
Ah,
So that went back to the story that you were
yes,
telling.
I
But
know. I'll call
Call
up
the
that old therapist.
that's right. That's right. Call that therapist.
Thanks, Mindy. I appreciate it.
And thank you for writing a book about the,
Yeah.
later. Yes, we appreciate it.
Yeah, I do. I definitely appreciate it. All right, I think there's one. Let's see. Oh, Pam just says, I wondered why Rocky and family went to the big beach all the way from Sandwich. So yeah, somebody knows that area. All right.
That's a really funny thing.
The other question that I always ask, books that you would recommend for us before we hop off.
Well, I'm recommending the book you're reading next, which is Margot's Got Money Troubles. Ruthie Thorpe is my real life girlfriend. Okay, not really. Not romantically. She is a friend of mine, and I finally met her in LA, and I fell so madly in love with her that every photo from this event I did with her is me literally gazing at her. Like there are just all these photos, and she looks totally normal, and I'm just looking at her like with dripping adoration. So I cannot believe you're getting her. She's the best. And her book, if you haven't read it yet, it's so good. She's so great. So I love her, love that. And have you guys read The Wedding People?
No, I haven't yet, but some of them have. I have it on my TBR. But
So
yeah.
I loved that book. And again, then I got to do an event with Allison Esbach is her name. And she was amazing. And I just fell like madly in love with her. And then the other book I always recommend is the person who I think does failing body humor the best in all the world is Samantha Irby. And she has a series of books like Meaty and We Are Never Meeting in Real Life. And I don't know, they all have titles like that. But I love her, and she writes a lot about Crohn's disease, but in this way that it's like the funniest thing ever. Like it's basically her like narratives about places she shat her pants because of Crohn's disease. And every time I read her, I'm like, that is the most generous thing to do, is to just write about the failing body, because we all live in fallible bodies. Like that's what it is to be human. Like our bodies just fail us. And it's so great. She's so great. So I always recommend her.
Well, when the author laughs as soon as the title's coming out of her mouth, that it's going to be a good one. So we appreciate those recommendations. And I don't know if Ruthie will appreciate it, but if you'd like to join and stalk her at our author chat in 2025, I'll send you the Zoom link and you can.
Oh my God, I will not stalk her, but it's really
kidding.
all I can do not to stalk her. Yeah, you're gonna just love her. She's so cute. You just feel like you're gonna die looking at her perfect little face. It's insane. You'll see.
Okay.
You don't really know what I'm talking about, but after you're gonna like email me and be like, okay, the thing about her perfect little face was true.
Okay, I was about to say we got roofied, but that would be
it's good.
all right.
It's pretty good.
All right, moving on. Thank you, Catherine, so much.
Thank you guys so much.
Best evening, and readers out there, thank you so much for joining. Please follow her on her Instagram for latest news. Do you have a title yet, or maybe a non-title for your next one?
The working title, and I swear this is like actually the first time I'm talking about this book publicly. So the working title is Wreck. But I don't want to tell
Again, not something that they're gonna like that won't be.
I don't know. I mean, HarperCollins already bought it, so I don't know if they're gonna keep that title or not.
We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. Keep us posted.
I will. You guys, thank you so much. What a
Thank
treat.
y'all. But if you need to hop, you can. I'm going to keep going. Would love for everyone to follow the LBs, the Lover of Books, for reviews, recommendations, and more author chats. In 2025, we've been talking about this. We're going to kick it off with Ruthie Thorpe's Margot's Got Money Troubles. This is about to also be a David E. Kelly Apple TV series. And y'all, the stars are huge. Nicole
Oh my
Kidman,
God.
Michelle Pfeiffer, Elle Fanning, and more. So again, we're going to be discussing spoilers, so make sure you read it. If you don't have it, get on that library list or ask for it for holiday. And then the next week, we're going to be discussing Nikki Erwick's The Measure, and that book doesn't really need an introduction. So hopefully you can get your hands on that if you haven't. But if you have an author that you want to hear from, just let me know. I'll see if I can make it happen and contact other authors, and maybe we can connect. But to stay up to date, I'm always on Facebook, Instagram, and I have that broadcast channel, which is really the best way on Instagram to find out all things. And again, if you'll subscribe on my YouTube channel, you can catch all of those past author chats. I think there's over 60 now. So, but Catherine, I'm just so pumped that you came. I just want to say
so thrilled.
From all of these readers out here, I just want you to know, I know how you feel. Same. I know how hard it is. I've been there. Thank you for taking us along with you. I loved it. I loved it. Thank y'all. Everybody have a great night and a fabulous start to your week, and happy holidays and reading, everyone. See y'all next year. Bye, everybody.